Assalamualaikum and a very lovely day to all. I am Iman binti Taufik from CS143. Today, our group will be presenting about the economy in China. Before we get to our main discussion, let us get to know a little bit about China.
China, which is also known as People's Republic of China, is a country located in East Asia. It is 9.6 million square kilometers in area and has a population of more than 1.4 billion. China is considered to be the world's most populous country.
Next, let's learn about China's flag.
The flag of China is also called the five-star red flag. It is designed by Zheng Liansong.
The red background of the flag represents the Chinese Communist Revolution, while the 5 golden stars in the flag represent the unification of the Chinese people under the leadership of the Communist Party of China. The big golden star is to represent the Communist Party of China, and the 4 smaller stars symbolize the 4 social classes amongst the Chinese people, which are scholars, peasants, workers, and merchants. When it comes to economy, China is one of the world's largest economies. It is a member of the World Trade Organization and is the world's biggest trading power.
China is the world's largest exporter and is ranked as the second largest importer of goods.
Now that we've seen a brief introduction about China, let us move on to our main topic, where we will discuss about the economy in China, including their policies and the problem we face.
Monetary policy refers to a policy which employs the central bank's control of the supply of money as an instrument for achieving the objectives of the general economic policy. The country China has implemented the monetary policy in order to achieve those objectives. The objectives are maintaining currency stability, maintain an adequate growth of the money supply to support the national economy, and correctly handle the interaction between preventing financial concerns and promoting economic growth. The Central Bank of China employs a variety of policy tools to maintain liquidity and ensure that the increase of the broad money supply and total social financing roughly corresponds to nominal economic growth. One of the tools that the People's Bank of China uses to make adjustment to its monetary policy is open market operations, which have been the major tool for the everyday operation of monetary policy in China. Repurchase and reverse repurchase agreements are the most common open market transactions in China. As an example, in order to solve the inflation, the People's Bank of China sells the security to commercial banks in the open market to reduce the volume of money in the economy. The PBOC can use these operations to regulate the money supply and interest rates on a short-term basis. The monetary policy that has been used by China since 1998 has received great success, which is consistent growth of total money and credit, some significant changes in credit structure, and has effectively supported national economic adjustment, keep domestic financial stability and the RMB exchange rate stable, and lastly, effectively realized the shift from direct to indirect monetary policy regulation.
The Chinese government has been pursuing an active fiscal policy to finance key constructions projects by issuing government debt in the past few years. The government implements fiscal policy through its influence over the investment activities of state-owned enterprise and local government, supported by credit policy actions of the PBC that ensure the Chinese banking system provides the necessary funding. China has embraced an expansionary fiscal policy in 2020, as stated by the Minister of Finance at the end of December 2019. However, the room for such active policy remains limited because it is likely to be constrained by the continuously decelerating growth of fiscal policy. Based on China Daily by Chen Jia, Finance Minister Liu Kun said at new conference that China's fiscal policy will remain proactive but most sustainable this year, besides focusing on promoting its efficiency and quality, reflecting a people-centered principle. The central government transfer payment to local will increase this year more than 8.3 trillion yuan, and this fund will be saved from controlling the central government's spending, according to the finance minister.
Next, I would like to continue with economy policy in China. Economy policy refers to the methods and tactics used by the government to control the economy for achieving its economic goals. The objective of economy policy in China is to ensure full employment, price stability, economic development, the balance of payment equilibrium, and resources efficiency. Because of that, China has made an annual plan to be followed. It has been called the first 5 years plan from 1953 until 1957. The plan prioritizes is to rapid expansion of the industry to the extent that some of it have endangered other areas of the economy. The industrial sector received the majority of the state investment, while agriculture, the employer forced to rely on their micro capital resource for their fund requirement. Next, there was a huge relocation of jobless industrial employers to the countryside, and industrial investment was temporarily reduced to free up resources for agricultural output. Since 1978, China's economic thought and strategy have changed so dramatically. The economic policy swing between an emphasis on market-oriented reform and a return to at least some dependence on centralized planning have been notable over this era. By the late 1980s, the economy had become overhead, with rising rate of inflation in response to a jump in inflation induced by expedited pricing liberalization. The government announced an austerity program towards the end of 1988. The Chinese economy expanded by 65% in the fourth quarter of 2020, indicating that the country has recovered from the COVID-19 shock.
Alright, then we go to our next point, which is inflation problem in China. Inflation can be defined as a continuous increase in the general price level of goods and services in the economy. For our case study report, we will do some research of the inflation problem that happens in China country. First of all, we will investigate the inflation problem that happens within the year 2010 till 2011. As you can see from the figure here, the inflation rate in 2010 is 3.3, meanwhile, the inflation rate in 2011 is increased to 5.4%. The general price level within these 2 years is sustained rise about 2.1%, and it is under creeping inflation degree. Every problem have its own causes. Same goes to the inflation problem in China. There are two types of causes that actually happen in the economy when it comes to the inflation, which is demand pull inflation and cost push inflation. In 2011, China having the cost push inflation because in 2011 China had the highest inflation rate, which is 5.4%. Cost push inflation refers to an increase in the general price level with an increase in the cost of production. It's look like cost push inflation makes all the products that related to each other with having a rising price in the general price level. Besides, the cost push inflation have the three type of the other inflation where import push inflation might happen when the foreign country import some of the goods from China. For example, Americans used to import some of goods from Chinese, so there will be other markups along the way of the imported goods because the China itself having the inflation during the time. Import push inflation occurs when the price of the imported raw or the finished goods increase. Next, we will discuss about the effects of the inflation problem in China. In the economy, there are four types of effects that will happen during the inflation, which is first, distribution of income, the savings, the productions, and lastly, the balance of trade. However, not all the people in China will thought that the inflation will bring injuries to their society. There are two types of people during the inflation, which is the gainers and the losers. The gainers means the people that tend to stand during the inflation because they are gain profit during to the rising price of the goods and services. Meanwhile, the losers is the people that comes from the fixed income group. Fixed income group, which means the people that work under the government that have their salary or wages that have been fixed income group means the people that work under the government. Their income is fixed even when the value of money is low or smaller during the inflation problem. However, inflation can be both beneficial to the economic recovery because in some cases it erodes some purchasing power of how much of some things can be purchased with currency. Lastly, we will take a look at how China overcome the inflation problem in the country. As we all know, in the economy, there are three types of measurements that we can use that we can use to control the inflation problem of a country. First of all, it is a monetary policy. Second, it is a fiscal policy. And third, it is a direct control measure. As for China, in 2011, which that have the highest inflation rate, China used to slow down the production of their goods in order to control the inflation. As for 2011, the inflation rate decreased to 2.65%, and it shows that China's success to control in order to control the inflation rate. Besides that, China also used to downgrade its asset value to the other country like India because China wants to nurture the significant overweight on worries that will make the GDP growth and earning estimate for the country still have to be priced by markets. And that's all to conclude the inflation problem in China. Thank you. Lastly, we will take a look at how China overcome the inflation problem in their country. As we all know, in the economy, there are three types of measurements that we can use to control the inflation problem of a country. First of all, it is a monetary policy. Second, it is a fiscal policy. And third, it is a direct control measure. As for China, in 2011, which that have the highest inflation rate, China used to slow down the production of their goods in order to control the inflation. As for 2011, the inflation rate decreased to 2.65%, and it shows that China's success to control in order to control the inflation rate. Besides that, China also used to downgrade its asset value to the other country like India because China wants to nurture the significant overweight on worries that will make the GDP growth and earning estimate for the country still have to be priced by markets. And that's all to conclude the inflation problem in China. Thank you.
That is about employment in China. China is a country that had the largest population on earth. Regarding the largest population in China, the shift of population into urban and rural areas is both having a serious impact of the employment situation because the range to supply of new workers it just remains 10 million per annum. So this huge population maybe would not able to supply a job for all the population because it exceeds the range supply of new workers. Other than that, unemployment also is a serious social issue in China in recent years. The young unemployment rate has also affected the development of China because teenagers in China also had a large average. In the past, even they are a low-skilled young population, they will easily find a job, but the economy at that time was stagnation, so they might face increasing difficulties in seeking or maintaining job. Not only that, but young unemployment also causes they cannot compete the top university graduates, so they cannot get the job. So it will be difficult for them to find enough qualified candidate that require a job to match with them. Lastly, migrant workers also have been returning home as the result of the financial crisis of 2007 until 2008 due to restrained consumer demand in developed countries. The financial crisis as the price fell sharply. So the business and the consumer at that time were mostly unable to pay their debt and financial institutions ran shortly of liquidity. So this recession caused variety of migrant unemployment in many parts of the world. It is also because even before the global economic crisis, China's large number of migrant workers was already marginalized. So there is no doubt that the global economic crisis hardly causes the unemployment. Okay, the next is about type of unemployment in China. There are three types of unemployment that happen in China. First of all, the type of unemployment that happen in China is cyclical unemployment. Cyclical unemployment occur when there is a lack of job because of downswing in a business cycle or a recession. In China, cyclical unemployment usually affected industrial workers and is the main reason for high unemployment in developing countries. The next is frictional unemployment. Frictional unemployment occurs when people are in between jobs or are entering or re-entering the labor force. In China's case, the frictional unemployment normally occurs among fresh graduates. Okay, the highest unemployment rate is mostly among the 20 to 24. So, this causes the employment situation for new university graduates to be worse than the working age population in general. Lastly, structural unemployment. Structural unemployment arises due to structural change in the economy of the country. In China, the worker lost their job because of isolated location. Then, this unemployment issue normally happen among the young generation. At the same time, college and university graduates mostly cannot find a job and difficult to get a job because of the teaching and learning environment. However, it is not only because they cannot find a job, but it is because it also depends on the reputation of the university. Next is about solution to overcome the unemployment in China. Okay, the first, the government has responded to the growing seriousness of the unemployment problem by adopting the priority policy like fiscal, taxation, and financial policy, which is the government have to practice by establishment fiscal policy through taxation and public expenditure. Using the favorable taxation policy, the government can support the unemployment who will like self-employment or start up their own business, and at the same time, it also encourages to observe the unemployment. The next is improving the public employment service system and fostering and developing the labor market. Okay. The public employment service system has provided the free job placement and employment guidance to the urban unemployment and the rural migrant workers, and at the same time, it also can increase employment opportunity. Lastly is establishing and improving the national vocational system. This education can help the student or graduate easily to get a job with this certificate in that education because they will be more qualified and be more skilled. As we know, to improve employment qualification, work competence, and job transferring capacity of the workforce are the most important in seeking jobs. That's all.
In conclusion, we have learned that China's public policies include the monetary policy, fiscal policy, and economy policy. The Chinese government's policies have been rather successful when it comes to economic outcomes. We've also learned that even if China is one of the world's largest economies and is a developed country, problems such as inflation and unemployment still occur. China is a communist state wherein the government is intended to manage the economy and there is no private property. But ever since the Chinese economic reform in 1978, China has expanded and begun to adopt a more capitalist reform. The economic reform has enabled a foreign trading system in order to broaden their investments, and with that we believe that China will continue to go this way.